From Canada, Citizens Forum, where we look at the important issues of the day through a lens of democracy and media and try to figure out, how do we build a better country for ourselves? Mark Carney is giving our money to big business and creating a huge deficit for Canada as he turns Canada into energy superpower land. Does Mark Carney work for Canadians, or does he still work for the owners of Goldman Sachs and Brookfield Asset Management, where he spent so much of his private sector career? Mr. Carney's new budget will continue to destroy our planet, give us cancer, and put more plastic into our brains, while giving billions of our dollars to the 0.01% corporate elite. This is the plan to build corporate Canada strong, as Mr. Carney likes to say. And we are the ones who will have to pay with our health, our money, our planet, and for young people, the futures. Mr. Carney's $78 billion deficit for the upcoming year is a record high deficit for Canada, except for the COVID years. It's almost like our governments, all of them, are trying to put us Canadians as deeply into debt as possible. And then all they have to do is raise interest rates, and we will be extremely screwed. Mr. Trudeau doubled Canada's national debt in just 4 years, from about $650 billion to $1.2 trillion. And Mr. Carney is continuing that trend with a record high deficit in his first year so he can build Canada strong. And as I said, this is a record high deficit aside from the COVID years. And I notice there is no discussion with Canadians as these plans are moved ahead. The media and the politicians tell us that giving billions to the corporations and to the military-industrial complex is the way to move Canada ahead into a brighter future. But in a democracy, our governments are supposed to be doing what the people want. And maybe we do want this Mark Carney plan. I don't know. But I do know that Canadians are not being asked about this and never will be asked, because what we want is totally irrelevant. We the people, are irrelevant when it comes to decision-making in Canada. Our corrupt politicians have been giving tens of billions of dollars to big business every year in 1,000 different ways, and they intend to continue doing that. And what we Canadians may think or want does not matter for 1 second. But maybe we can start to do things a little bit differently. People are very worried about the cost of living. Rents and mortgages for millions of Canadians are insane. The cost of food is out of sight, and millions of Canadians can barely afford to eat. And we're never told why. But Mr. Carney's budget barely touches any of that. Why is the cost of food so high? Why is the cost of homes so high for so many people? Why don't our governments at least look into these kinds of questions and give us some answers? Mr. Carney and our premiers are investing tens of billions of our dollars into gas, oil, mining, logging, and the military. Plus, they are planning to give the car companies another $50 billion of our money. $50 billion to the car companies, and that barely gets talked about by the corporate-owned media. There is no discussion with Canadians as our premiers and the Prime Minister say we will give billions to oil and gas companies so that Canada can be an energy superpower. To hell with any protection of the environment, as millions of us have plastic in our brains, and half of us are going to get cancer as the corporations poison everything. These corrupt politicians are creating hundreds of billions of dollars of debt to make Canada a gas and oil superpower in an era where the use of gas, oil, and plastics must be reduced. And we Canadians are the ones who are going to be left with the debt that we will have to pay off. And that debt is now up to almost $1.3 trillion. That's just the federal debt. Skip the debt of every province. Just add that on. Meanwhile, large parts of Jamaica have just been completely wrecked by Hurricane Melissa, believed to be the most powerful hurricane on record to hit that country. Parts of entire towns have been wiped out. Thousands of homes, and more likely tens of thousands of homes, are damaged or gone. There has also been significant damage to major infrastructure and businesses and farmland and crops right across Jamaica. Whether or not you believe in climate change, the destruction of large parts of an entire country is a fact that shouldn't be ignored. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said for years that he does believe that our burning of fossil fuels and use of other chemicals is impacting the atmosphere and causing the climate to change. In a 2015 speech, Mr. Carney said the challenges currently posed by climate change pale in significance compared to what might come. While we still have time to act, the window of opportunity is finite and shrinking, according to Mr. Carney in 2015. Since then, Canada has seen one record-breaking fire season after another. According to many scientists, the poles are melting, both north and south, and the glaciers are disappearing. The Amazon rainforest and the world's coral reefs are in danger, and 17 of the warmest years on record have occurred since 2001. And because of all of this, it's becoming more difficult to grow food. The corporate media are downplaying these dangers. The media say they believe the climate is being changed by our massive overuse of fossil fuels, but they never suggest that it's actually time to do something. And what we have to do is we have to use less. But because of the tremendous power of the corporations, the media are not allowed to suggest that we have to change our lifestyles and our societies if we want to survive. We are at a point where entire towns are being wrecked by fires and floods, and even entire nations are being hammered. And yet the media pretend, and the politicians, pretend that we can just carry on as we have for 100 years. Fly to Vegas for the weekend? No problem. Drive 15 or 20,000 kilometers in our cars? No problem every year. Build monster homes and heat and cool them as much as we want, 365 days a year? No problem. The media and politicians continue to pretend that this can go on, even as the world changes before our eyes. Much of Canada and the United States were covered by smoke for much of this past summer, but according to our rulers, no changes are needed. In fact, the idea of actually using less is so crazy that it is virtually never even mentioned. And now our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and all our premiers and all the corporate media are telling us that we have to become an energy superpower. That is the road forward for Canada, according to Mr. Carney. And here in British Columbia, our NDP Premier David Eby tells us that we need more fracking and more LNG. Alberta wants more oil and coal. Ontario wants to build more cars. 3 or 4 provinces want to go nuclear. And what could go wrong with that? Everybody wants more. And Mr. Carney and all our governments and media intend to give us more. More poison, more cancer, more debt, and more profits for big business. The only solution I can see is more grassroots democracy in Canada, where we Canadians actually have a voice in what's going on in our country. The battle ahead is not to make Canada an energy superpower. The battle ahead is to try to make us a democracy and to try to survive what's coming. And all of those are fights worth fighting. So let's hope that these fights start sometime soon, because if they don't, well, maybe it's already too late.